given our lives to you, Lord. I just thank you for the salvation that you give us, Lord, as we repent and give our lives to you, Lord. I pray that you'll be honored as what goes on here tonight, Lord. You'll be glorified in everything that we say. In Jesus' name, amen. Come thou fount of every mercy, to my heart to sing thy praise. Streams of mercy never ceasing, call for songs of loudest praise. Teach me some melodious sonnet, sung by flaming tongues above. Praise the mount I've fixed upon it, mount of thy redeeming love. Let's all stand to sing. I was lost in utter darkness, till you came and rescued me. I was bound by all my sin, when your love came and set me free. Now my soul can sing a new song, now my heart has found a home. Now your grace is always with me, and I'll never be alone. Come thou fount, come thou King, come thou precious Prince of Peace. Hear your cry, to you we sing. Come thou fount of our blessing. Oh, to grace, how great a debtor, daily I'm constrained to be. Let thy grace, Lord, like a fetter, let my wandering heart to thee. Prone to wander, Lord, I feel it, prone to leave the God I love. Here's my heart, Lord, take and seal it for thy courts above. Come thou fount, come thou King, come thou precious Prince of Peace. Hear your cry, to you we sing. Come thou fount of our blessing. Come thou fount, come thou King, come thou precious Prince of Peace. Hear your cry, to you we sing. Come thou fount of our blessing.
Let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you so much for this night that you've given us just to gather together and worship you, dear Lord. We just ask that as the kids talk about their experience with Snowbird, you just take their fear and nervousness away, dear Lord. Just let them share how you have worked in their lives. And as we come to this portion of the service, we just ask that you bless the gift, bless the giver. In your name we pray.
Breathe on me, breath of God. Breathe on me, breathe on me, breath of God. Breathe on me. I come alive when you breathe on me.
prophesy to these bones and say to them, dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says to these bones. I will make breath in you, and you will come to life. So I prophesied as I was commanded. As I was prophesying, there was a noise, a rattling sound, and the bones came together, bone to bone. And I looked, and tendons and flesh appeared on them, and skin covered them, but there was no breath in them. Then he said to me, prophesy to the breath, prophesy, son of man, and say to them, come from the four winds, O breath, and breathe.
Away, 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 my soul. God resurrect these bones from death to life. For you alone. Away, my soul. Away, 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 my soul. God resurrect these bones from death to life. For you alone. Away, my soul.
I'll just use the pulpit mic.
Okay.
We didn't change battery before we started on my mic, but I forgot. So they're dead. Tonight we are, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be sharing about our week of summer camp. At summer, we met back July the 1st to the 6th. So it's been almost a full month now since we left. And we'll be, yeah, I'm back. Okay, stand up here, way. We went back July the 1st to the 6th, and it's Andrews, North Carolina, and we talked about it a lot, and I had a great, amazing week. We took 25 total people, had 21 students, and 4 adults that went, and got there Monday and stayed and went through Saturday. And so it was just an amazing week. And so obviously, we have a small selection of students here. From our group, we had, I want to say 7 or 8 of them that aren't normal attenders of our church, either from other churches or just that don't attend church at all. So that was neat. And a lot of our other students are on vacation this week or working, that kind of stuff. So I wanted us tonight to share, some of the things that, mostly that what God did that week. Kind of some of the things that we learned, that we sat through and were taught, and experiences, and how God moved in the lives of our teenagers. And just, obviously I was around the guys a lot more, but every night before we went to bed, we would have share groups, which means we would just kind of gather together. We did ours separately. We did guys, together, and the girls had their separate one. They had theirs together. And we did it at the end of every day. We would just talk about, go back through and talk about the sermons that we heard, the breakout sessions we had sat through, and just kind of anything that kind of came up that day. And they were amazing times to hear, just to sit there and listen to the guys, talk about the things that they had heard. And there were several nights when we had some really intense discussion, just about things that God was doing in their lives, and struggles guys were having. From what I understand with the girls, they had a lot of the same things. So it was just amazing to see teenagers willing to open up like that. When it's hard for a teenager to talk, period, when adults are involved. But then to talk about personal things that they're going through, or personal things that they're learning, and that kind of stuff is a big deal. And so most of you have been there. It's really difficult to get up in front of everybody and talk, especially as a teenager. So thank you guys for being willing to do that. So we're what I want to do tonight, there are several things that I kind of want us to talk about that we'll kind of go through, and I'm going to let them just kind of come up and tell you some of the funny stuff and some of the cool stuff that they got to experience that week. But I mentioned already, hold my list here, one of the big things Snowbird focuses on, and they can kind of change their schedule a little bit, is to include breakout sessions. And basically the breakout session is just like a class almost that you see, about 45 minutes long, where they teach on just a variety of different topics. And most of the kids sat through 2 a day for 4 straight days. Sometimes for one of the days, even up to 3 a day, plus another worship session that day, that evening. So most days we were sitting through 3, sometimes 4 different sessions a day.
So that's a lot to intake for anybody in one day, but especially for teenagers to take in and absorb in one day. But it's amazing the things that they learn and the things that they would talk about afterwards. And so some of the things some of the different breakout sessions, and some of our teenagers are going to talk about some of these. We had different, on Wednesday night we had separate guy and girl breakouts, which was basically a class that focused on just the guys, on issues guys deal with, and then on issues girls deal with. We had a breakout on evolution, on dating and relationships, how to study the Bible, a breakout called the New Atheism, which Colby's going to come tell you what that is, the problem of evil, there's a breakout on divorce, on homosexuality, so just a big range of different topics and stuff and things that they learn and things they talk about. So we're going to have some of our students come up and tell you about some of these. And so Colby's going to come up first. Put you on the spot first, Colby. He's going to tell you about the New Atheism breakout and what that was about and some of the notes that he took from there.
I decided to talk about this one because this was one that really caught my attention. And this was the New Atheism. And atheism is really starting to become a part of society for us today. And one famous atheist is called Richard Dawkins. He's a former professor at Oxford, written over a dozen books against Christianity. Calls himself the Devil's Chaplain, and he believes in militant atheism. Another one is called Chris Hitchens. He's a writer and political commentator. He died in December of 2011. He believes that religion is sexually oppressive, and he wrote a thing called The Collision, and it's about is Christianity good for the world. Another one is called Daniel Dennett. He was a professor at Tufts University, believes that Darwinian evolution is the universal facet, and right now he's trying to come up with an explanation saying that that's true. Another one is Sam Harris. He has a PhD in neuroscience, and he wrote a letter to a Christian nation. He believes that science must destroy religion. And another one, and I didn't have that much, and the topic he came to next was what's new about it. And one thing that's new about it is their focus. Their focus is mainly on Christianity. Their audience is the masses and not the academy. The way they speak, their tone is they're very angry, and their grounding is they're using natural science rather than philosophy. Their aim is to eradicate Christianity from the earth. Tolerance is abolish all religious tolerance. Ignorance is regarding history and classic Christian proof. SEAL is launching an evangelistic campaign. The second thing he said was, "Is it working?" And yes, it is eventually. And there were no answers because no answers were their origin and their meaning, purpose, and value. And why is because it rejects authority, poor representation of Christianity, and its emotional overreaction to evil. And one thing that he said was really eye-catching to me, and it made my brain spin around. It said in England, Christianity is decreasing faster than they predicted. And that's a big part of society for me. And I just can't believe it, but it's kind of mind-wrapping for me. And that's all I got for that sermon. So I'm going to turn it over to somebody else for right now.
Thanks, Colby. And so you can see, a lot of times when you think of youth camps, you think of the fun aspect of it. You think teenagers go off for a week and just have fun for a week and don't do anything else. As you can see, definitely not the case. There's some pretty heavy breakouts. This is one of the heavier ones. This one and the evolution one got pretty detailed and in-depth, scientifically and theologically and that kind of stuff. So some pretty heavy stuff that our teenagers were getting to sit through and learn. Sarah's going to come up now and talk about the girl breakout and what the girls
a girl always has a list, but this was just a even better one for me to look for. And when he said look for a provider, he said someone who just works and can plan for the future for you. And he went through all the points, and I really liked how he did that. And when he talked about share groups, and after share groups, we talked with our counselors, and we one of our counselors' names were Blake, and she talked about how he has to be structured and be a godly man, because we can't change who he is, and we have to be equally yoked.
And so some really important stuff. And then on the flip side of that, we had the guys. As the girls were talking about that stuff, the guys, we were in a separate building talking about our stuff. And so Ethan's going to come and tell you about what the guys talked about.
So we got in and we sat down and watched a funny video, and then we had something called the Man Dance, and then we got a little serious and went to the, we talked about God being pure, and we talked about lust, and we talked about pornography, and how pornography usually used to start around 12 years old, and now it's got worse and increased to 9 years old. And he talked about a scientist that he tested these college students and about the pornography and stuff, and it actually would create acid in your brain and like erode the brain from the inside out. And he talked about how 2 books, and that was all I had to say.
Thanks, Ethan. So some really heavy stuff. And after those Wednesday night breakouts, so we had these on Wednesday night after worship. Those sparked some amazing discussion. I know amongst the guys it does, and even carried into Thursday night our share groups. Just that topic. And Wednesday night we focused, or really all day Wednesday, looked at biblical sexuality. And I think the homosexuality breakout was that day, and the guy-girl breakouts for that night. And so we talked about that in share groups that night. And then Thursday morning came back in with the dating and relationships breakout. So all of that with teenagers is a kind of a big thing in their life stage right now. So it sparked some amazing discussion and amazing talks from them, and sharing things and kind of how they were going through and dealing with all that. And so that's just a sample, an example of some of the breakouts they had. Like I said, they had several more, and some of them were lighter, easier to understand, easier to follow, dealing more with kind of real life issues. Some were more theological in nature, like evolution and the new atheism breakout. So one of my favorite aspects of the camp week, because there's just such a wide variety of topics that they deal with and cover, and just kind of open students' eyes to a lot of different areas that they may not think about on a regular basis, or hear about on a regular basis in church or on a Sunday morning or something like that. So one of the really cool aspects. There are several other things that I want our students to share with you about. One is called SWO Underground. SWO is just Snowbird Wilderness Outfitters. It's just kind of an acronym for Snowbird. It's called SWO Underground. It's kind of this after worship experience that you could do. And Amanda's going to come up and tell you about SWO Underground.
SWO Underground was not actually underground. It was on top of a very tall hill you had to hike through in the woods. But it was this building where you could go in, and first you take your shoes off, and then you go in and you looked around, and you had a lot of stories about missionaries who were martyrs, and just a lot of their stories, and you could see, some of the chains where they had been chained up, and it was just made you realize, how much these people loved God, that they would go through all of this to let people know about Him. And to me, I'd like to be a missionary, and that was kind of, I guess, a little eye-opening to me that, this is what you're getting into. But so that was, that made me think a lot. And then once you go through all of the stories, and you could write letters to missionaries out now, they had this tunnel which is a little difficult to explain, but it was a tunnel, and you walk through, and you see the nails that would have looked like when they nailed Jesus to the cross, and then you saw like the crown of thorns, and then you walked past, and they gave you a little cross, a little wooden cross, and you write your name on it. And then they had a place where you put your cross down, saying that Jesus died for you. And then there's another spot where you write down things you struggle with, and then you give it up and you give it to Christ. And so just walking through that, after seeing all the stories, just kind of made me realize that Jesus really deserves us. He deserves us to go out and to share about him, even if the cost is to be killed. But the love he gave us needs to be shared with everybody around us. And that was kind of the point of SWO Underground.
Yeah, so a lot of times we don't think about here in America, especially in the South, here, and we're comfortable in church. It's not hard most of the time to come to church and to sit in church, and we're not faced with the persecution that millions and millions of believers around the world are faced with. And so SWO Underground is just an amazing time. It's totally silent in the room, so nobody's talking. The focus is solely on what's going on around there and what you're reading about and learning about. So just a really eye-opening experience, especially for teenagers who aren't really faced with that on a regular basis. So a really cool thing. Another really cool kind of extra worship experience that Snowbird does. And this is probably one of the favorite things throughout the whole week. They do on Thursday night. It's called the Revelation Skit. So it's a big production they put on, and Becky's going to tell you about the Revelation Skit.
So on Thursday night, we had a Revelation Skit. It was rainy the whole week, so kind of the set was made. The scene it felt like you were there. All the counselors were dressed up. They had black on. They had mud on their faces, and they played out like what Satan would be like, and how Jesus would come back. And all of them were like demons, and they were dressed in all black. And they were like 4 Christians in the middle, and Satan was walking around them. And they were just saying scriptures and everything, and Satan was trying to show them that he was trying to convince them that he was God. And it was amazing how they kept going, kept reciting everything they knew about the Bible, and eventually they got killed. And later in the skit, Jesus comes down on a horse, riding a horse, and all his followers, and they came and they had a little war scene like in a movie, like you would see in a movie, and you could see how they would they killed Satan and all his demons, and it was so cool because it felt like you were there, and it felt like that day when Jesus was coming back, and it's really it helps you look forward to when Jesus comes back and how you're supposed to. Even though you're going through hard times, or even though it's hard like they were going through, you still need to read your Bible and stuff like that. It was very interesting.
Cool. So like it's just a neat experience because you can read about it in Revelation and read how the scene unfolds and how it happens, and we learn about it as kids, but to see it fleshed out and really one of the best ways that we can see it on this earth, just in a kind of a big production, a big skit thing, is super neat. And just kind of eye-opening for a lot of students. So cool. If you haven't, if you can't tell already, just from knowing me for over a year now, I'm pretty passionate about Snowbird. Just about the camp itself. I was saved in Snowbird. It's been a huge, huge part of my life, my spiritual journey for the past 12 years now. And so one of the things that, in my mind, sets Snowbird apart from any other camp I've ever been to, or really any youth camp that I've ever researched or looked into, is the staff to student ratio. And most, camps you go to, and like you read like Super Wow or Centrifuge, we went to 2 summers ago or last summer, these big camps and stuff like that, they have maybe at the best a 1 to say 25 staff to student ratio, and there's just a bunch of kids and not very many staffers, and it works and it's good for facilitating the camp, but as far as building relationships with staff and counselors, it just you can't really do that at another camp like that. The staff to student ratio at Snowbird is 1 to 4. So there's 1 staffer for every 4 students, which is just unbelievable. as far as a youth camp goes, and just opens up a ton of opportunities and doors. And so Josh, I was going to come tell you about what it was like to interact with the counselors.
The staff there really was awesome. I mean, they're super cool, really funny. Ethan mentioned a man dance. That was actually a mosh pit that they had set up, which was really fun. But they're super cool, super funny, but very caring. They really care about where you are in your walk with Christ. They will pull you aside and ask you, what's going on. If you have any problems, like if you're struggling with a certain sin that you can't seem to get off of, they'll give you advice. They will just fill you with love and care, and really they care about you. And it's just awesome to see so many people caring about you so much, to take time out of their day, every day when you're at camp, to talk to you and pray for you. And it's a great environment.
And so in 2006, I worked on staff during the summer, and so I kind of first-hand experience with it. And even going back to my first summer as a camper in 2001, I still have relationships with the staff that I met that first summer 12 years ago. And granted, I've been back to Snowbird a lot since then, and see them on a decent, regular basis. But still have relationships with these same guys that I met 12 summers ago. And so each week, there are certain, depending on how many guys and girls we have with our group, there's a certain number of staff that are assigned. Like we had 3 guys staffers that were assigned to our group of guys, and I think 4 girl staffers that were assigned to our group of girls. And so you get specific staffers, and it's really their job that week to be intentional about hanging out with our students and striking up conversations with our students during lunch and free time and recs. And just pouring into our kids. And it is unbelievable, just in 5 days, the connection a college-age student can make with a teenager. Because most of these college-age students, they're from just a huge variety of background and life experiences, and so they've been just about anywhere that our students could have been before, and had that experience. And so just an amazing, probably my favorite part, or one of my favorite parts of just Snowbird in general, is the attention they put onto their staff, and the attention the staff then puts on to my students, and even me as a leader, and how they pour into us is just unbelievable. So that's kind of just some of the more specific things I wanted to share with you about. And so now our students are going to come up and just kind of tell you, things that individually that how God dealt with them, and things that they learned and things they experienced throughout the week. Some of it will be funny. There's some funny stories, and so some neat experiences. It's not every day you get to go whitewater rafting in freezing cold water. It rains. I think somebody mentioned it rained literally every day we were up there. Most days, at least 80% of the day. And it was just, we were constantly wet, constantly. But we turned into fun, which I'll show you some pictures in a minute. You can see some of the fun we had with it. So we're going to, some of the students are going to come up and just kind of talk about personally. Becky, do you want to go first? And just share with you some personal stuff.
Like Josh was talking about, the staff there is really, really cool. One of the girls there, we were always told that we need to read our Bible. One of the girls there taught it, her name was Blake, and she taught us how to read. So we would get up at 7 o'clock in the morning with Amanda and Sarah, and we would go up to her, and we would take our Bibles, and she would show us with color crayons and everything, and how to study the Bible, how you could go in depth with it. It was really cool, and how great it was, the relationship with her.
Thanks, Becky. Anybody else? Ethan, go ahead.
Some of the things that we did there, like fun stuff, like we had rec times, like we had the 3-man swing, the zip line, we had a new water slide down the mountain, and then they had paintball, different recs, like archery, skeet shooting, stuff like that. And like he said that it was raining most of the week. It was freezing cold also. And they had rock climbing, and we actually pulled a prank on Josh and Stephen. And we went, and most of the time that we talked about some of the breakouts and some of the things that we did there, but all of the sermons and stuff, they were all really good.
Just to clarify, the prank thing, so I get in trouble. It was clear with their parents. I cleared it with their parents. What it was is, it was Josh and Steven's first big youth trip with us as new sixth graders, and so we initiated them. There's some pictures on the slideshow you could see. It was good, clean fun. I don't know about clean, but it was good fun. You'll see some pictures. Anybody else?
Try not to be a little nervous here, so try to bear with me a little bit here. But mainly when we got to Snowbird, I remember we went there for a couple of days, but I never went there for a full week. And mainly I had missed home when I had already gotten there, but one thing that had really impacted me was the counselors there. All many years I wanted to try to tell somebody how I was truly feeling, but I never really thought anybody would ever listen to me. Well, many of the days went by at Snowbird, and Thursday, of course, I saw the Revelation skit, which was really a real eye-opener for me, because you had Satan, and then you had the 4 horsemen, which were, of course, the outcasts with him. And then it saw you how there was a big battle, and how Satan got thrown into the abyss, and he would be sealed over, but I never really truly knew what was wrong with me there at Snowbird, but it was Friday night at one of the worship sessions, and we were singing and all that, and he said you could go out and you could meet one of the counselors and you could talk to them and tell them how you were feeling. Well, mainly at that precise time I realized what was really wrong with me. That many, many years I'd never really read my Bible, and I never really came in contact with Jesus as much as I really needed to. And mainly I was jealous of other people around me that were having such a very deep relationship with God, and I was really sad because I really didn't have that deep relationship with Him myself, and that really started knocking at me, but I really didn't realize it until that time. And I finally had the courage to get up and walk out and talk to one of the counselors about how I truly felt. Well, really, I've been feeling empty inside because I never really felt God was around me and God was not there when I needed Him. And there was many other times where I wondered, can God really see how much I'm hurting inside, that He would really take away the pain that was truly leaking at my heart? And I always really thought, I was like, I wonder if He'll ever really, really see me for the first time, how I'm really, really sad and lost and very confused. But finally I had the courage to tell the counselor how I felt, and we sat there and sat on a bench. And right there, I just poured my heart out, and I was just telling him, and I was just feeling a weight being lifted off my shoulder, and it was getting lighter and lighter. And it was like finally I could breathe again, and I wasn't being beared down by the weight of sin. And finally, whenever I told him all about it, it was like all the sin that had been inside me that made me empty just left. And it was like, I was like, and every week and every day they said, whenever you leave here, you will be transformed. Well, I finally had the courage to do that, and all the sin that was bearing down for me all the years that I had gone by with it just left, and it was like I was no longer empty. I was full of God's mercy and grace, and most of all, I really felt comfort because I could finally feel how warm His love was for me and how much He loved me, and I finally realized. And every time I have two bracelets on my hands because after we left Snowbird, I've really felt transformed, and every time I would ever look up and see the sky, I would always look up and I would always see Jesus looking down on me. And I finally heard it that he was proud of me for telling somebody how I felt. And I was finally put back on track. So now I wasn't like wandering away from Him. I was wondering where I needed to go. I needed to go on God's path and let Him lead me and let him lead me all the way to home. And I finally felt at home whenever I did, because I was finally there with God. And he could just wrap me around, he could just wrap all his love around me, and I would finally feel comfort and not feel so empty and alone and being buried with the weight of sin. But after the end of the week, I was like no longer empty. I was just transformed from the inside and outside, but mostly on the inside, because I was saying, whenever I said after the confession, I was saying, Lord, I'm coming home. And I'm coming home, and at home is where I'll stay with you. As long as I'm with him, I'm not alone, I'm not confused, I'm not empty, I'm not cold, I'm not an outcast from the rest of all the people. With him, I finally feel where I need to be. And with him, being at home with him, there's no more greater feeling in the world that I cannot hardly put into words how much I feel glad that I'm home, that I'm finally home with him. And I actually felt him hug me for the first time, and I finally felt at ease with it. So right then and there, I left and I felt completely transformed, and I was like, he is out there and he's watching me and he loves me, and I'm finally at home with him, and at home I'll stay and I will never leave home, because he's with me and he will never leave me.
Anybody else? Sweet. I wanted to hear from our adults now. Ms. Bonnie, Mr. Shelley, if y'all want to come up. And obviously we can't do a youth trip without adults. And so we had, obviously I went, Ms. Bonnie and Mr. Shelley went, and then we had kind of tag team, a fourth adult spot. Emily Coleman, who's a college student, and I know who came and helped with our D now, she came up for the first half of the week, and then Jennifer came up for the last half of the week. And so I just want you to hear from them and kind of get Semper from an adult perspective.
Thank you. I just wanted to say again about the staff and student ratio. We would have sharing time at night, and the adults, I could sit back, and the students, the staff, the college students would just take over. And I won't ever forget Blake, as you mentioned in Blake, but one of the girls after the relationship day, and the man just told them about what to be looking for in a godly man, what to be looking for now, even though it was a little bit early, what to be looking for. And they just so related to those college students. And Blake was talking about how that, and of course college students are a little closer to marriage than these are, but they would share their struggles in dating. And Blake reiterated to these students about how the fact is, you be looking for a man that can be your leader, that can lead you spiritually. And Blake shared with them that she had some relationships, but that she had cut them off because that man couldn't lead her spiritually. And just to see those girls listen to her and take in, they just really connected where they wouldn't have connected with me because I wasn't there. So there really was and those students, they met us at lunch and supper. They were just always around us and with those students. I mean, they really did click before the week was over. And one other thing I just want to say is that we played really hard. The college students were crazy. I mean, I've never seen, when we got there, our bus pulled in and they are climbing all over the bus and in the bus, and just welcoming the students and wanting to make them feel at home. Some of the worship services were so funny. It was a lot of fun. We played really hard all day long. We had a great time. When it was lights out, you didn't hear a word in my cabin. I mean, we cut the lights off, and
chaperoned the children about 10 years ago. I have not chaperoned since. And Bonnie calls me up one day and says, "Guess what I just signed us up for?" And my reaction was, yuck. You know, I was not looking forward to this trip. It's a long bus ride, yuck. We get there, and the first couple of days, the first night I realized I'm on the top bunk in a room that, the mattress is that thin, and I'm thinking, yuck. The days were from if you wanted to shower, about 5:30, which the showers were 100 yards up a hill from me, in the bathroom, yuck. The cafeteria food, the day started about 6 and ended at anywhere between 11 and 2 a.m. And I'm like, yuck. It rained every day, 2 and 3 times, and I'm like, yuck. And, I'm wondering what I got myself into. But it didn't take 1 or 2 days, y'all, and I was over it. We went to 3 to 5 good biblical-based sermons every day that were relatable to the youth, they were relatable to the adults. Kelly let us go to some of the counselor sessions, and where they were preached to, the counselors were preached to, and it was all said and done, it was an absolutely incredible experience. I heard the word, the gospel, as Bonnie said, 3 to 4 times, sometimes 5 times every day, and it was deep, it was good, it was biblical, it was doctrinal. I loved it, and yeah, we got to do all the whitewater rafting and all that. It was fun, and had a lot of fun, and the kids really opened up to those counselors, and it just amazed me that the youth of this church, as Vonnie has already said, they heard the gospel, they heard the word multiple times every day. They had relationships started with those counselors that will go on in the future. And even though I went with a bad attitude, I came back with a very deep appreciation. And if Kelly will let me, I will chaperone that again. I really enjoyed it. So thank y'all for letting me go.
I appreciate you guys. I know it's hard to take off a week from work and then spend that week doing something and not using it for your own vacation. So I really appreciate you guys. And as they attested to, it is a week off from work that you don't get to take your own personal vacation, but it is a week unlike any other you'll experience. And it is unbelievable. So if you have the opportunity, which there will be more opportunities to chaperone our youth trips, I encourage you to take that opportunity and do it. It's amazing. But now, as we finish up, I know you've heard a lot of the spiritual things that God did that week and the things they learned. Equally as, I can't say equally, but almost up on the same level as the spiritual experience that week is the fun experience. I mean, it is just unbelievable the amount of fun and how hard, as Ronnie mentioned, how hard we play each day. And so a lot of different rec options they could choose from and sign up for, and we had rec time from about 12:30 until about 5 or 5:30 every day. Horseback riding, or zip lining, lake tubing, tubing down the river, whitewater rafting. Just paintball, just a bunch of different things that our kids got to do. And so there's going to be some pictures. I'm a horrible picture taker when it comes to being on trips because I like to play. I don't like to stand around with a camera taking pictures. So I wish I would have captured more of the stuff we did, but I didn't. So there's about 100 pictures on Facebook, not here, so don't start worrying. I trimmed out about at least half of them. So there's about 100 pictures from the week on Facebook if you want to go on to Broad Street Youth Ministries Facebook page and check those out. But I have some up here, and I'll kind of be inserting little comments, and you can kind of see some of the fun that we had on the trip. This is us before we left, getting ready to go. The music that's playing, this is actually Snowbirds, their worship band. So that's what Bonnie mentioned, the staffers. That's them as we're pulling in, waiting on us to mob us. They had a creek running through camp that some of the boys like to play in here. He wasn't crying, he was playing.
is where we ate. It's like a cafeteria. This is the initiation we talked about. That's Josh there. That's a trash bag covering their clothes so they didn't get messed up. That's just a mixture of random food products. Of course, we let them clean off in the freezing cold creek. This is a couple pictures from the hike. That was one of the rec options to the top of a big fire tower on top of a mountain. Just unbelievable views. That's the coop. That's where we worship. This was the fun we had on the rainy days. We created a mudslide on the hill. It was quite a hit. These next few pictures are from Thursday night. They had a big kind of redneck games, kind of rodeo atmosphere. Just a bunch of random games. It was a lot of fun. This was the guys' front porch. Mostly said it rained all week, so we got just unbelievable nastiness inside one of the rooms. And guys aren't the cleanest creatures God could ever create. These are some of our guys skating on a skate park, a basketball court, volleyball court. These are some of the guys skating on the skate park. Rock sticking out into the river you could jump off of. The craziest thing about Nantahala is ice cold. It's super cold. This was myself and Amanda and Josh and Jonathan took duckies, which are like these little inflatable canoes down the river on Thursday afternoon, and it was a blast. And the end rapids are called the Nantahala Falls. This is Josh going into the Nantahala Falls here, and decided to go swimming through them. And then right behind him was Amanda. And so she comes, there's Josh's empty boat, and Amanda hits the falls as well, and they don't really like her much either. And so they got a little wet there, but it was fun. And here's just some shots of our group here at the end. Oh, you might want to talk about the food. It's good. Good food. I like the food. It is somewhat cafeteria style. Obviously they're cooking for, there's about 450 students and adults there per week, plus about 120 staffers there total. So they're cooking for well over 500 people each meal. But considering that, obviously they have to cook cafeteria style food. But considering that, I thought the food was great. They have a big salad bar that's really good every meal, in case you don't like the hot line. I think the only meal most people didn't like was the taco night, the little burrito thing. It was, But other than that, the food I thought the food was really good. And so just to finish up, as you read there at the end of that video, I just want to thank you guys as the church
for supporting our youth ministry and our students financially and all the fundraisers we do and giving that way, but then especially through your prayers and praying over our students and our adults and just because of that, seeing what God's done in the lives of our students and it just being kind of a jumping off place. And just a place where students can get real with God, and then as they get back home, continue digging into God's Word and striving and being conformed to the image of Christ. So just thank you for, as a church, for supporting us and allowing our students to go. And as I said, there will be more snowbird trips that will be just as great as this time. So encourage your grandchildren and children and nephews and nieces and everybody to go. So it'll be awesome. Well, I'm going to pray, and then we'll be done tonight. Let me pray. Father, thank you so much just for the privilege to be here tonight to worship you. And thank you for everything that you did in the lives of students and even adults during our week at camp and just how you